Hello everyone and welcome back to the channel. In the last video I mentioned I was going to show you the discs and what I'm doing to those. I didn't get around to doing that, but we're going to cover that off now in this video. So this is the second video in the series of videos restoring the Yamaha SRX 600. So the discs on this bike are they're fine, to be perfectly honest. I've had a micrometer on them, I've measured them, they're well within specs, and what I've done with them so far is I've had them in my shot blast cabinet, and I'll give them just a light blast over because they were quite glazed, they were very shiny. So what I've done is I've just put them in the shot blast cabinet and given them a blast in there just to get all of that glaze off and get them back to the bare metal. This inner part here is meant to be painted black. In fact, it was black, although it was flaking off when I put it into the shot blaster. So this is the, if you like, the front side of the disc, and if I turn that over, there's the back side of the disc. The back side of the disc is just plain metal, there's no paint on that whatsoever. But on this side, this inner section is meant to be black. So what I've done so far is I've got some lining tape, masking tape, which is great stuff. It's like a plastic. So I'll show you what it is. Yeah, so it's just this stuff, and comes on a roll. But what it's good for is going around corners. So as you can see, there's a nice curve all the way around there, which is great for this sort of application. So the rest of the disc I'm going to mask off, and I'm going to spray this area. I've actually run out of masking tape, so I'm waiting for some to arrive, which should be here tomorrow. And at that point, what I'll do is I'll mask these off, and we'll get on with spraying. Last time I mentioned about the wheels, and I thought the wheels were going to be okay. Didn't think they were going to need painting. But since the last episode, I have cleaned these wheels up and got off all the muck, and it turns out, if I can zoom in so you can see that, there are marks on the paint which I'm not happy with, so I am unfortunately going to have to paint all of these. I've got the paint, it's not a problem, but it just adds to the rebuild time. So I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to polish these rims first, get all this polished up and then masked off, and then paint afterwards, because I'm slightly bothered that if I do the painting first and then I start polishing up these rims, then I'm going to get all the polishing compound all over the new paint, and I won't be able to get it off because although the casting isn't rough, it's definitely got a rough finish to it, if that makes sense. And I'd struggle to get all the compound out of that if I got it on there. So I think I'm going to polish the rims first. So we'll come back to that. This is our rear wheel off the SRX 600. It's all still assembled at the moment. It's got a decent tyre on this actually. In fact, the front's not too bad either. They're both Bridgestone Battle Axe BT45 tyres. I have checked for a date on this. Can't quite see where it is at the minute. Oh, there we go. I think it's that there, isn't it? So 55016, that's week 50 2016, and that was manufactured. So yeah, there's no cracking on the sidewalls, and according to Bridgestone and their dating system, that tyre should be absolutely fine for a couple of years or so. Our sprocket is looking pretty good. It doesn't look particularly worn, looking at the teeth on that. I'm happy with that. All this is obviously going to need to come off in a minute and be cleaned up. And our disc on the other side, again, it's looking fine. I've had a micrometer on that. I can't see any cracks on it. It wasn't noticeably warped when I was riding the bike, so we just need to get that off. And you can see what I mean by, on this one, the inner part is black, and it's actually in better condition on this than it was on the front ones. But we'll get that off, see whether that needs repainting or whether that'll just clean up. All of the bolts are going to need to be re-zinced. In fact, I've re-zinced the front ones already, so let me go and get those and we can have a look at the difference it makes. So these are the disc bolts from the front wheel, and if I just zoom in a bit so you can see those. So basically all of these, let me see if I can get that in focus a bit better. There we go. So all of these I've re-zinced and then just put through a clear passivate, which gives it a slightly blue hue as well, which is pretty close to factory. So I'm pleased with that. So that's the difference. If I hold that up there so you can see, that's what it looks like before and after. And I'll show you the technique I use for doing that, possibly in this video, maybe a later video, once I've got the zinc kit, the plating kit sorted out and on the bench. So next job, let's get this wheel stripped. Okay, let's get these parts out of the way temporarily. I think what we'll do, so we keep everything together in the order that it was. I think we had that one, then that one, that way round, like that, and then we've got our two nuts. This one, there's like loads of bits of swarf on here. I don't quite know what that is. That might be a bit of investigation just to see what's going on there. I suppose it could just be bits of the chrome coming off. I'm not sure about that. We'll have a look at that in a bit. Actually, that's a sided nut. It's got like a little built-in washer on that side, so that will go on that way. Just move those out of the way for a minute. Bring our wheel into view. So I think the first thing to do is, let's see if we can get this sprocket off there, because that's going to need to be cleaned up separately. While we're looking at the wheel, let's just talk about these cush rubbers and that we can see. So the idea of these is that as the bike, as the clutch engages and the bike pulls off, if I get them out to show you, the idea of these is that they cushion the drive as the drive gets taken up by the back wheel. I can't get that one out right at the moment. Let's try that one. No, they're all in there pretty tight, so they're going to need a bit more work to get out, but initial inspections suggest they're going to be okay. But we'll have a closer look once we get those out. Bearings all feel nice and smooth. I don't think they're going to need changing. That's good. So next job is to just drop this back in there. So we've got some kind of support, and then we're going to get the ugga gun out, and we're going to have a go at getting these off once I put some plus gas on them, just to loosen them up. I'm fully expecting these to have blue Loctite on. That's what they should have had on, or Loctite on from the factory or similar product. Whether this has been off before and changed, I don't know. It's possible. I can't see till I've cleaned it up whether it looks like an original one. It's certainly the same shape as an original one, but it could be a pattern part. I don't know. Yeah, but let's give that a go. Okay, that's our sprocket off, that's all sorted. So I've turned the wheel over, and now we're going to do the same operation to get the disc off. That's everything off the wheel that I want to take off, so that's ready for just being cleaned up with some soap and water now before I look at polishing the alloy and then painting the wheel. I'm not going to show you cleaning the wheel, I'm sure you want to have to do that. Now our wheel's disassembled, if we take a look at these bolts, focus, as you can see there, they're not corroded, but the zinc has certainly gone. They've gone rusty. They need sorting out and rezinking really. You can see traces of Loctite blue on there as well. I was expecting to find that as it's holding on the discs. So the next stage before plating these is to get these in the blast cabinet, and because I could just put them on a wire wheel, and lots of parts I do put on a wire wheel, just in my bench grinder, bench polisher machine. But to be honest, you can't get into the tops of these with a wire wheel. So the only way of doing that properly really is to put it in the blast cabinet. It's a long process when you've got, you know, a bunch of bolts to do, but you know, it's worth it in the end. I know I could just send all these off, I could just strip the whole thing, I could send them all off in one go, and you know, get the local place to sort all these out for me, and then you come back and I just assemble it all back together. And yeah, I could do that, I have done that. My biggest concern with, well, I enjoy doing this side of it anyway, if I'm perfectly honest, but my biggest concern with that is not so much with things like this, because these are replaceable, but if you send these off to a plater and you've got things like, I don't know, let's say maybe parts of this type, you know, the end cap off the swinging arm, those sorts of things, or engine plates that are no longer made and are difficult to get hold of. If they lose those, and they do lose parts sometimes, then you know, you're in a whole world of pain at that point, because you've got to try and find replacements. So certainly if I've got tons and tons and tons of screws to do, and these are easy to replace if they lose them, I'm happy to send those off. But otherwise, particularly with plates, and I think I showed in the first video with the carburetor and the plates on that, those sorts of small intricate parts that are just impossible to replace, you know, with a bike of that sort of age, unless you buy a whole carb assembly, you know. So yeah, I don't think it's worth it. If you can do it yourself, do it yourself. I am going to show, rather than show the zinc plating process as part of this video, I'm going to make a separate video on that, and I'll put a link to the description of that in this video, so you can click through and watch that one, and that'll be a more in-depth video about how I zinc plate at home. Before we can start to think about zinc plating these parts, we've got to clean them thoroughly, and they've got to be dry, because the process really is through the parts washer, get all the grease and the muck off them, dry them off with the airline, then blast it all back to bare metal, and then once we've done that, we can start thinking about the zinc plating process. The first job, get these in here, get all these cleaned up and get them dried off. Next job, get these dried off with an airline. So the bolts are all now nice and dry, but obviously they're still quite... Can we get that in focus? Yeah. They're still... obviously the zinc's come off these, so we just need to clean these up in the blast cabinet now. So that's the next job. So my blast cabinet is only a small basic blast cabinet I should say. Really, it's got its own light. There we go. And pretty basic setup. Spray gun, built-in gloves, filter where the air comes in, and then that one over here on the back of that, what I've got is a Ray Heath Robinson bodged together extraction system utilising a old tumble dryer vent hose, and then that goes into my vacuum cleaner. This was originally bought to clean out ash from stoves in the house, which it has been used for and works very well, but it also does seem to work very well for extracting all of the dust from here. So at the moment, as far as media goes, what I've got in here is glass bead. That's what that is. I do use soda in here as well, and actually the little black bits that you can see in there, I don't know if you can see those. I did have a sort of iron filings, for want of a better word, in here, but it didn't really work. But there's still a little bit of that left in there. That won't matter. That's absolutely fine. And then on the other end of this, supplying the air, we have a 50 litre SGS compressor, which is pretty much fine for this job. You need maximum 90 psi, and this will happily go up to that. So yeah, it's noisy. I do have to wear ear protection when I'm using this, and also the extraction system is noisy as well. So well, you'll hear that when it all starts up. But let's get on with it and get these bolts sorted, and I'll show you what they look like once we're done. Okay, so we're done with the blast cabinet for now, and we can see that our bolts are, or bolt heads I should say, are nice and clean. The most important part is the inside of that hex, because that's pretty much impossible to get to with a wire brush or anything else with it without spending huge amounts of time. That bunch of bolts has taken me about, I don't know, 10 minutes or so in the blast cabinet, something like that. So yeah, not too long. So next stage is we need to clean up these threads and get rid of as much of the Loctite as we can from those, and the best way of doing that is on a wire wheel on the bench grinder. So let's move over there and we'll carry on with the process. So the process we're going to look at next is just cleaning these threads up. These have got thread lock on them, and we could just do with removing as much of that as possible before we start the process of zinc plating. So to do that, I've just got a wire wheel set up in my bench grinder. The bench grinder I just clamp in my vise because I haven't got a massive amount of flat surface in this setup, so I just take it in and out of the vise as and when I need it. Sometimes it's got grinding wheels on it, sometimes it's got buffing buffing wheels on it depending on what I'm doing, but this is just a standard wire wheel, which multi-purpose, useful for just cleaning up threads and things like that. So let's go on and clean them up. So they're all cleaned up now, or at least as much as I need them to be, and these are ready for the zinc plating process. So that's where I'm going to end today's video. Thanks very much for watching. If you've enjoyed the video, please give it a like down below and subscribe to the channel, and I'll see you in the next one.